Right, now I'm going to film one about algebra. Oh no, algebra, you know, it seems really complicated, doesn't it? It's not that difficult to understand, same as calculus really, in principle. Algebra comes from an old Arabic word called algebra, which means literally the science of reuniting in relation to numbers and commodities and things. So what algebra means, you've seen all these so-and-so equals t this and x, y, that, and taking into account this formula, that formula. All it means is, imagine that you're writing some numbers and you're into the millions, for example. Just like I say, just to understand this, and you've got 10 million billion or something, just a ridiculous amount of numbers to write down, loads of zeros maybe, you know, and that kind of thing. And this is where algebra originally developed from. But if you could symbolise that number, as long as someone else understood the code that you'd encoded your equations with, if you like, what letter stood for what, you could just write t, for example, or an x or a y or a z or whatever number you chose or symbol you chose really. Usually letters of the alphabet are chosen, but that's the basic principle. It's about efficiency really, in a sense, algebra. It's symbolic, as all numbers are symbolic anyway, but it symbolises a group of things into a simple case really, I suppose. It puts them into a simple container. So as long as you understand what, like say, x, y, z, t, whatever it might be, as long as you understand what's hiding behind that single letter on the blackboard or, you know, the whiteboard, whatever it is nowadays they use. Use felt tip pens now. When I was at school it was a blackboard, but anyway, as long as you understand what that letter symbolises, then you can understand how to use algebra. Like I say, it's a code based on efficiency basically, because it just saves you writing out so many complicated equations again and again and again. So in that sense, all you have to do is just inform the person who's going to read your equations what your symbols mean in this context. And then you can add up x, y and z and divide z by x or whatever it is, provided you know what z or x or y, whatever it symbolises underneath itself, if you see what I mean. It just saves you writing loads and loads and loads of complicated equations. Because as you get into mathematics and stuff, you start seeing it all and you think, my goodness, you know, what does that mean? It looks like a foreign code, like computer programming, doesn't it? Computer programming is pretty much the same thing as algebra in a sense. It becomes easier and easier, more user-friendly as we go along, you see. And basically, like I say, it's a symbol. Computer programming is simplified into smaller statements than what we used to have to write. In the same way that before we used algebra, you see, we'd have had to write out each individual symbol that we were doing, and it might have needed a massive piece of paper, and it would have been a lot of effort and all this. But now, you just have to write a symbol, one symbol, and as long as you know what that symbol means, do you see what I mean? Then you can understand what algebra means. And that's, I mean, like I say, it does get complicated if you don't know what the symbols mean. If you're just reading t, x, y, z, whatever it is, divided by this, that and the other, and there's some fanciful symbolic equation there somewhere, then obviously it looks confusing, but underneath it all, if you strip it back, it's just numbers being symbolised, groups of numbers. Like I say, it just saves you having to write out each individual number every single time, you know, in the same way that you can call the same class from multiple parts of a program, for example. You can reference it. It's the same kind of idea, basically based on efficiency. That's the original point. And the formulas and things, like let's say you invent a formula which means a certain way of looking at a certain amount of numbers really. It could be any formula at all, but as long as you know what it means, like pi for example, as long as you understand what that symbolises, that symbol means, then you can solve the equation as such, you see. And that's about all I've got to say for algebra. Like I say, this is just a quick introduction. I'm not feeling that focused today, so I'm just trying to sort of get it out there for now, and hopefully when I watch these back it gives me some inspiration. Okay?